Is this thing working? What's happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic Sunday. Just wrapping up Mopar Fest in Houston, and I got to tell you, had a good time. A couple of things I'd like to see changed about that event. Some things that are a bit annoying, at least for the guys that are more or less sportsmen going out there trying to have a good time. But aside from that, got to say everything worked well. Now, how did Revlon do? I'll tell you this. Unbelievably well. As a matter of fact, she was running 1050s as consistently as you could ask for anything to run, given the conditions. I mean, we were running in 95, 100-degree weather all day. So, yeah, for that thing to even try to run in the 50s was just crazy to me. But I do want to send a huge shout-out to Houston Raceway Park, the staff there. Austin and his team did a fantastic job with track prep. So, you know, big ups to them. All things considered, given the conditions, couldn't have asked for anything better. And again, hotter than hell. I got to tell you guys, it was absolutely nuts just how hot it was. And again, it was one of those situations where even the U-Connects quit working in the car. So anyway, oh yeah, bit of a change of venue. Oh wait, we got Mark Cooley on the house saying even Professor Mason got the arm flex. Nah, my wife checking in. That is not your beautiful house. I miss you, baby. I wish we were hanging out. Unfortunately, I am out of town on business. This is the hotel room. So Mopar Chat Live coming at you straight from the Marriott here in McAllen. But miss you, baby. Love you. Rift's checking in. Say what up, B. R. Grassi saying, hey, B, got the 2 flex up with the thumbs up. I love it. My baby saying, sending me a heart. Miss you. A little heart for my girl. I got a hot wife. I miss her already. Blackbird 98 TA saying, what up, B? So anyway, it was so hot. This is no joke, guys. Again, the U-Connect wasn't working in the car. It was stuck on 72 degrees. And for those of you guys that have had your cars out in really hot weather, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. U-Connect even noped us all. So at any rate, that was part of the experience, so to speak. I was down in waters basically left and right trying to stay hydrated and alive, because I tell you this, it was an absolute just mess in terms of the heat, the way it was affecting the drivers, the way it was affecting the track, the way it was affecting the cars, everything. It was tough on everybody, but everybody got through it unscathed. And again, Revlon did flawlessly. She was trying to run 1050s all day, and the only reason why she didn't run 50s is basically based on driver error. I'll tell you, one pass had loaded the car up at the tree and actually started pushing through the beams. The car never does that, and the only reason why it did was, again, it was just tough to keep track prep right. And you get VHT on the track, it gets hot, it actually quits being sticky and starts to get a little bit slippery. So we were actually pushing through the beams at the light. And then the second time I had one quick slight rotation on the tire. But aside from that, every single pass was dead hooking. And every time she dead hooked, I was running mid 150 60 foots and running 1050s basically all day in the heat. So let me check in with everybody. Girl, stop dorking out. That's good. That's pretty rich coming from somebody that said stop forking out. What are you calling me, fat? I am getting fat, but what can I say? Better not be forking. Yes. Forking. You're funny, babe. Love you. Thanks. Sorry. I'm Frio saying, Professor Mopar, what's up, man? Argrassi, tell no Mopar motel chat. Oh, man. The no-tell Mopar. Actually, not coming at you from the Mason Motor Lodge. In this case, coming at you from, the Marriott. Out of town, unfortunately. Not doing the Hoods Up show for the Heads Up. But Riff saying, finally got a 10.8. I like it. Very good job, my friend. So real quick recap on the car, just so you guys know. Running basically the same setup that I normally run, with the only addition being a little bit of race gas. And the main reason why I want to run a little bit of race gas is because, well, 2 reasons. One, consistency for fuel. One of the issues I've been running into has actually been fuel quality. And the biggest issue with fuel quality has, I've been noticing a bit more knock retard out of the car. And you got to keep in mind, I'm not running any more timing than stock. I'm still running stock timing. So when you start seeing that, a little bit elevated knock in there, one of two things is going on. One, it's either temperature, or two, your fuel quality is not great. Could be a combination thereof. So decided to run a little bit of 100 octane in the tank. Car seems to love it quite a bit. But aside from that, same as she always runs, and she was loving. Am I in Detroit? No, nowhere near Detroit, but I can tell you that all in all, again, the 100 octane was part of the reason why the car was running as well as it was. Again, no extra timing or anything like that. Just really good track prep and leaning on her pretty hard in those heavy, hot temperatures, and she did really well. A whole lot better than she should have, I will say that. Viperline saying, how are you? Doing good, Viperline. Hope you're doing as well. What is the best cold air intake for Hemi 392 performance-wise? Don't care about sound. Hellcat intake with a Hellcat airbox. That is the only way to go, especially if you're running a Challenger. And if you're running a Charger, listen, the same applies. It's just going to be a bit more of a headache to install. You will have to remove that front fascia. And I know nobody likes to hear that, but the reality is that is the best kit that's going to be out there, is actually the factory stuff. I've tested both at the drag strip and on the dyno a ton of different kits, not only for the 392s, but also for the Hellcats. And I can tell you this, the Hellcat airbox, as you don't want to hear it if you're in the market for something that's aftermarket, but it is real difficult to beat. Up to about, I'm going to say somewhere north of about 800 odd horsepower to the rear wheel on a Mustang dyno, about 880 horsepower to the rear wheel on a dyno jet. You're just not going to get a whole lot better than that setup. So, the factory really knew what they were doing when they put that thing together. It's the least expensive of the group. Yeah, if you've got a Charger, it's going to be a bit more of a headache to install, but once you get it installed, it's actually going to be a little bit better than the Charger kit, believe it or not. But yeah, go with that kit, save yourself some money, and you will absolutely be able to reap the benefits. But again, Hellcat intake with the Hellcat filter. Let's see. Slash was saying my power side brakes are working beautiful. Thank you for that tip. Oh yeah, no problem, man. Rip saying, how long will the rear rotors on my Hellcats last if I keep doing burnouts the way I am using the brakes instead of the line lock? I don't know how long they'll last. I mean, I can tell you this. I've run, the same brakes were on my 392, SRT 392, and I had hundreds of passes on that car with no real signs of the rear brakes letting go. And with the Hellcats, or really any of the Scat Packs, any of the 392 cars, you're not really on the brakes that hard when you're doing a burnout. So it's not like other cars where you really have to stand on the brakes. These things don't really push through very much. So I think they're going to last you quite a while. I wouldn't worry too much about that. And if you do need to replace them, they're super easy to replace, and they're pretty cheap too. Let's see, he's saying, I do have a burn box, but I have to go through so much stuff. Yeah, see, that's the reason why I don't use mine. I've got the burn box, but the only time I use it is for cool down, and that's it. In fact, I don't use it for the line lock. I don't use it for really anything else. To be honest with you, I don't even know what all the damn thing does. I know how to get it to cool off the car. I can make the fans come on. I can make the pumps run, make the fans come on and make the pumps run at the same time. That's the only thing I use that thing for, and quite honestly, I've tried using it the other way. The main reason why I don't like using it for the line lock is because once you kill the line lock, it seems like it threw the car back into like default mode. So I had to remember to reach down and double bump my SRT pages again, or SRT button again, to throw it back into custom mode. Just became a bit of it was tedious, and when you're trying to make a pass, you don't need all that extra nonsense. So get the car, stage it, and launch is what I'd rather do, as opposed to get in the car, go through this whole, redundant thing to have to light the tires up when it does it so easily on its own. Actually, Rick's got a good point. I've also learned to take the burn box when I'm not using it, since I had many problems leaving it in. That is correct. Make sure you are removing that thing so that you don't kill your battery. It doesn't happen very often. In fact, the only times, now that I'm thinking about it, the only times I've actually had it create a problem is when the battery was already kind of low to begin with in my car, and for whatever reason, it just drained the battery down. It took it about I want to say it took it about 3 or 4 days, maybe 5 days to actually drain the battery. What happens is it just leaves the dash lights on. So if you get out in your garage and you notice the dash lights are on, go ahead and remove it, because that's what's happening. That's what's causing that problem. Let's see. Argrossy's saying, hey, B, would trans tune on a new SRT, hopefully Redeye, void a transmission? Yes, it will. Won't void the entire car warranty. He's asking if he should wait until it's out of warranty. So here's the deal with that. The main problem with anything modification-wise with your car is that it has a potential to void your warranty. So yes, a trans tune 100% will void your transmission tune, but it's not going to void other things like windshield wipers quit working right, or something along those lines. It doesn't have anything to do with bumper to bumper with other things that aren't affected by powertrain, but you are going to be voiding a powertrain warranty. So something to keep in mind when you're looking to do any tuning with your vehicle. And don't try to game the system by buying a different computer and you're going to put that in, and you can get around that a little bit. But if you get a service writer or a tech that's pretty savvy and he goes in and looks for a 1405 code and he finds it, it's going to raise a red flag, and any tune is going to raise that red flag. So just keep that in mind walking into it. You can't get away from that by swapping out computers. If you're worried about any kind of warranty issues and you're trying to get around the system by going with the separate computer, I mean, it's a gamble. You could get away with it. You could get away with it a couple of times if you run into multiple problems, but typically you're going to be voiding the warranty and you're going to get caught. Be my luck anyway. So for what it's worth, just know that's what's up with that. Jean-Paul's asking, hi, Brian, how much boost can a 5.7 Hemi handle with a Magnuson safely? Well, obviously, it depends on the tune. I would say keep it around 7 to 9 PSI with a Maggie, but it's not really the 5.7 that you're worried about. It's everything that's attached to the 5.7. So you're worried about transmission, drive shaft, and rear end at that point, and half shafts. So that would be really more to the point of what I would look for as far as issues. But I would say keep the power down to around, say, 500-ish to the wheels, and you'll be real safe and have a real peppy, real responsive car. And that's 500 to the rear wheels on a Mustang dyno. Anything more than that, and you're going to be taking some liberties with that transmission here pretty soon, I can pretty much assure you. Dr. Div's asking, what up, B Mason? Missed the first part. How'd you do yesterday? Really haven't gotten too into Mopar Fest. So, no, it went well. And so let's talk about Mopar Fest and kind of dive into that. So I made it to the quarterfinals in one of the bracket classes. It was a 10.0 index for Hellcat class, which was kind of weird, but they weren't running the bracket classes based on dial-in. They were running it like a normal bracket class, which isn't too cool, in my opinion. In fact, I think it's bullshit that they ran it that way. Let me explain to you why. So regardless of the class that you run in, the idea of having they had a pro tree, which was great. I love the idea of having a pro tree for a bracket class. It eliminates a lot of red lights, and well, that's the main thing, is it eliminates red lights. And so it keeps the flow of things moving a little bit more quickly. I liked that about it, but they were running it like a bracketed. How do I explain this? It was a bracketed dial-in, which is kind of crappy. So let me just put it like this. Let's say you've got a car that runs real consistent 12.0s every single time down the drag strip, and you enter your car in a 12.0 bracket. What ends up happening, and what did happen, and this is why a lot of people kind of scattered after the first round of eliminations, you had guys with cars that would run 11.0s hop into the 12.0 class, basically dial in a 12.1 when they know their car will run much quicker than that, not worry about reaction time, catch the guy, and then fender him straight to the finish line. That happened to a lot of guys, and that really set some people off in the wrong way, as opposed to having a dial-in, closest to dial-in bracket. That would have been a whole lot more fun, and you could have basically run it as 9.0 class, 10.0 class, 11.0 class, or 950, whatever you want to run. you could have had a better class breakdown, have more and deeper, more and deeper fields for each class. And I would say, okay, I'm going to run a 1058, and I go out there and run a 1058. If I break out, then I break out. I've gone too quickly, just like a normal bracket, and you're done. But instead, it was just bad, because for the guys that were trying to go out there and have a good time in bracket racing, the issue was that you would invariably run up against somebody that would just fender you all the way down the track, and you're stuck. So anyway, that being said, in one of the bracket classes, I literally put myself out in the first round. I had dialed in a 10.6 flat, thinking that the car was probably going to run, because I was, track conditions were what they were. It was getting into the hotter part of the day, so I thought, you know what, I don't think the car's got a 50 in it. I bet you it's going to run a 1063, 1062. So I put in there, I originally had dialed in 1065. I brought it back down to a 10.6 flat, thinking I would probably cover the number with just a little bit to spare. Sure enough, she goes out and runs a 1058. So yeah, knocked myself out right in the first round. But you know what? That was a lot of fun anyway. I was having a ball, and got plenty of passes in. So what didn't have anything to do with that. I was just having a lot of fun. But yeah, took myself out right after right in the first round. But anyway, that's how it went. Got a lot of runs in, but that was my experience in general with Mopar Fest. I think they could have kept a lot more of the casual racer guy, weekend guy on board if they would have done the brackets a little bit differently. Just a normal dial-in would have been a whole lot more fun for guys to try to get that number, to try to hit that number, than it would be to try to bracket them and then have a bunch of knuckleheads that are just a bunch of fenderellas that are just going to try to fender somebody and take a win when it's really not racing. It's just, what's the point? I mean, for me, sure, I could have taken my car and run it in an 11.0 class and just fendered everybody all the way down the drag strip. And that would have been no fun for me and no fun for the people I was running against. It's pretty much a bitch-ass move. And if you do that kind of shit, then you're a bitch-ass. You know where I'm going with that. So anyway, but I had a great time. It was a lot of fun. Got to see a lot of folks. Got to say hi to everybody. So that was the only reason why I wanted to go anyway. The racing was just secondary. But yeah, Revlon did kick some ass, by the way. Let's see. Rip's checking in with Dr. Diff. Let's see. Rip is asking, good question. So when you do a trans tune, you're tuning the TCM. Does that mean you do not need to unlock the PCM? No, you still have to go through the PCM to get to the TCM. And there are things in the PCM that you have to change, or else the TCM is pointless. So you can't do a trans tune without doing an engine tune anyway. Let's see. Hey, Riff, thank you very much, man. I appreciate the contribution to the cause. It's saying he ran it in sport instead of track and ran his first 1080. So awesome. Glad to see that worked out for you, brother. Crane Man's checking in saying, hey, B Mason, been a while since I've joined the chat. Always a good time when you're on. Got the devil horns. I like it. Team Mopar saying, what up, B? What up, team? So I just took my 5.7 Grand Cherokee 1249 at 109, 4,300 foot DA on a $125 shot. Raced a Hellcat and went 1255, and the Hellcat went 1251. Almost took him down, brother. I love it. Get out there and pick on those Hellcats, man. They won't know what hit them. Dr. Dove saying, you in a hotel room? Yes, I am. I'm in a hotel out of town for work this part of this week. CMC saying, what's up, man? Sharks saying, what's good? Thumbs up all the time. I like it. Dr. Div saying, they had some really fast trucks out there this weekend. Sadly, I didn't get to go. Kiddos were more important. Understand completely. Yeah, most performance drug out some heavy artillery. So there were quite a few pretty quick trucks that were running around down there causing a ruckus. Dimitri's checking in saying, we had the Mopar Shootout here. A lot of people, let's see, at it, they were talking a lot about Mopar Fest. Yeah, it's a good time. Again, I just would like to see him do a little something different. Either that or, like I say, I love going there. I love having a good time. And, as long as I'm getting a chance to run my car, I don't care if I win, lose, draw, whatever the case is. I'm just out there having fun. So I'm really more concerned for the guys that can, that you want to see them come back. The idea with one of those types of events is that you want guys to want to come back. And I got to tell you, with as many people as backed out of the event right after the first round of eliminations, you could tell right away that they had really been rubbed the wrong way. So I think with a tweak in the actual way, and well, I shouldn't look the way that they were managing it, but just a different type of an event would be a lot more fun for a lot more people. Just my opinion. Let's see. Speed Freak saying, hey, B, could you explain what you read and look for in your data log? Maybe a video sometime going through reading a log for us newbies with tuning. Well, there's a lot of things that you're looking for, and you're going to be going over the same data over and over and over again to take a look at. First thing you're going to look for, though, is short-term knock retard. But it depends on what you're looking at the data for, really. But no matter what, you're always going to scroll through real quickly to make sure there's no short-term knock retard. Then you're going to scroll through the misfires and make sure you don't have one cylinder that is just on a freak out with misfires. Those are the first two things you're going to look at as an experienced or a noob. Those are the first two things that you're most concerned with. Whoa, we got some craziness going on with the lighting on here. Sorry about that, guys. But those are the things you're going to look for first. The next thing you're going to look for, it just kind of depends. So you're possibly going to look at your injector duty cycle, make sure that thing's not going too far above 80-85%. You're going to be looking for so many different things. Shift points if you're looking at transmission tuning. On launch, you're going to be looking for any excessive like little bump in the mile per hour. You're looking for stuff like that on a launch, just to see how the car is reacting. There's so much to it. You're not just looking at one specific thing. But, command AFR, that's another thing that you want to look at. Also, if you're getting codes or issues, what your throttle source is. Is it due to overtemp? Is it due to some other issue that you might be running into? There's a bunch of little things, again, that you're looking for, and you just kind of go back and go through them every time and, just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Other things that you're going to look for when you're looking at data is cat overtemp. You're going to look at the cat, you're monitoring the catalytic converter temperatures. You're looking at if the car is equipped with them, but looking for cat overtemp enrichment where it comes in. So if you're on a pass and you're running catalytic converters, you're going to have cat overtemp active. If you've adjusted anything in there, you want to look at where that cat overtemp is coming in. I don't know why this thing keeps doing this. I don't know if you guys can see this, but every once in a while it just goes zzz with all this lighting. So anyway, but there's just so much that you're looking for. It really depends specifically on what you're looking for when you're looking at your data. Let's see. John Paul saying, okay, Brian, I'm at 8 pounds of boost right now with a stock block with shorty header, 6-speed manual. Just wondering if a cam would work with my Magnuson and maybe some head work. What do you think? Well, it depends on the cam. I'm going to caution you real quickly, though. When you start throwing cams at boosted cars, it's not like you're throwing a cam at a naturally aspirated car. In one respect, when you put a cam in a car and you're used to having a stock cam in the car, you have to remember that one of the things that a more aggressive camshaft does is it, in effect, lowers the displacement of the engine by reducing your dynamic compression ratio, or at least your static compression ratio. Dynamic compression ratio can go up based on RPM. I can totally nerd out on you on cams if you'd like, but I'll tell you this. The short answer is, if you're going to put a cam in the car, you're going to have to pulley up on the blower to truly take advantage of it. So the more boost you run, or at least I should say, the more aggressive pulley combination you run, the more cam you can run, and you will lose boost, but you will pick up power, with the only problem there being that you will lose throttle response, and you'll start building more power up top than you were down low, regardless of the type of blower that we're talking about. So just know that coming into it. Depending on what you're going for, you can definitely pick up some power, but the biggest mistake guys make is that they'll cam a car that already has a supercharger on it, thinking that they're just going to make all this new power, with the only real net effect being that you lose cylinder pressure and you lose boost. Obviously, you're wanting to stretch the RPM out, but the main thing you're going to want to do is pulley down, smaller pulley on the blower, or get a larger crank pulley and be able to take advantage of the cam, which is now trying to flow more air. There's a lot that's involved with that, but just understand that you're not just, by asking the question, you're opening up a Pandora's box of other issues that you can possibly run into with that combination. Just know that coming into it. Let's see. Riv saying hotel, motel, Holiday Inn. Shire saying, got the Motel Dog Power saying, hello, Mr. Mason. What up, D Powers? John Paul saying, running 1180 at 119. Yeah, you need to throw a smaller pulley and more cam at it, and you'll definitely drag that down. But just know that you will, to keep all of the partial throttle response there, you're certainly going to have to go lower in that pulley ratio. Dr. Diff's asking if the enforcer cam would help on that Maggie setup. You know, in that, on that particular car, I would still need, if he's running a stock cam in the car now, the enforcer cam that we developed would do a good job of allowing the car to leg out a little bit, but it still needs a bigger pulley. No matter what cam goes in the thing, you're going to, well, bigger crank pulley or smaller supercharger pulley to maintain that same amount of boost with the higher flow capacity that that cam is trying to bring in and then get out of that car. It's the overlap issue. Even with the wider LSA, it's not going to be as wide as the cam that he's currently got. But it would work really nicely with a set of long tubes and a much smaller pulley. But you're going to have to pulley it to try to make about 12 pounds of boost to make about 10 on that car with that cam, to kind of give you an idea of what you're going to lose in terms of boost along the way. And that, again, is why a lot of times guys will put a cam in a, especially a, well, centrifugal supercharger, more to the point here. You put a cam in the thing, you lose the boost, but you gain some efficiency. It's kind of like you lose the boost, but you gain some efficiency, so you kind of come back to zero on that. Some guys will say, well, it's safer, and it's making roughly the same power, sort of. But the problem is that you have dropped cylinder pressures, so the car doesn't feel as strong as it used to. So again, it's a perception. And if you're not taking the car to the drag strip all the time, that cam might not be the best thing in the world for you. But if you're running a centrifugal supercharger, or especially a turbo, or you've got a combination that you are trying to keep streetable, then that cam would be really good, especially for strokers. That'd be a good cam. Let's see. Dr. Div's asking, talking about injector duty cycle, I was surprised how fast Pops got to the 85% mark on his just with cam and bolt-ons, hovering around 88% at wide open throttle. Yeah, no kidding. These 392s and Hellcats too will get to a pretty aggressive injector duty cycle fairly quickly. I don't like seeing him go above 90, especially if you're not running any cat over temp protection. If you're running cat over temp protection and you're hitting, say, 92, 93 is okay. I've seen him go on stock cars as high as 95%. So, yeah, definitely, it's definitely a thing. Let's see. Rip is saying, so am I. 2015 Hellcat supercharger is starting to make the dreaded bearing noise. Not 100% sure if I still have a drivetrain warranty. If I do not, do you think I should go with a Whipple? Oh man, that's a tough one, man. I've got mixed feelings about the Whipple superchargers on a Hellcats, only for a couple of reasons. One, they can be a bit of a train wreck to tune if you're not well versed, or you're not sending the car to somebody that's well versed with that supercharger. The thing is that the IHI supercharger that's on the Hellcats is a known, very strong performing supercharger. Look, there are guys running deep into the nines with that supercharger. You don't need a Whipple to go extremely fast. If you want to go super fast, yeah, a Whipple will kind of work, right? But that's a lot of money to spend for a head unit that may or may not outperform the head unit that's already on your car. So just kind of take it with a grain of salt at that point. But I'd stick with the stock supercharger. Steven is asking, what are your thoughts on a ProCharger on a 5.7? I love them. They work great. In fact, on 5.7s, 5.7 seem to take to them a little bit easier. But then again, you're also dealing with, a smaller engine, so it's easier to make boost with them. But yeah, 5.7 with a D1 SC, race intercooler setup, making about 8 pounds of boost. That's a happy little Hemi. They're a lot of fun to drive too. Shawnee is asking, Hellcat stock oil viscosity seems a bit thin for a heavy-duty supercharged car. What are your thoughts on going to a slightly thicker synthetic oil for a Hellcat? And then Sean's saying, I hope the weekend was fun. Any cool stories? Well, getting back to the oil thing, 040 is great. I mean, a 40-weight oil, once the car warms up, you're dealing with a 40-weight oil. So it actually works out pretty well. Some guys I've heard of running the Rotella T 2050, I believe is what it is. It's kind of a neither here nor there type thing. I don't think it'll hurt anything, but no, I mean, 040 is what we've run in all the strokers. We've run that in after break-in oil. We've run it in a little bit of everything, and it works great. So yeah, I'd say keep rocking with it for sure. Cool stories, I don't know. It was a lot of fun. Other than, and talking about that, so, cool stories. One, it was hot enough to where my phone overheated. So I couldn't video anything. I only had my phone with me. So the phone overheated, couldn't video anything. Uconnect kept telling me that it was 72 degrees when it was clearly about 100 degrees outside. So there's that. So yeah, there's at least that to consider. That was kind of cool, I guess. But it was Mopar Fest. It's all late model stuff. Not a whole lot of old school hot rods show up to that, which is a real bummer. But there were a couple, really nice cars. There was a 70 Super B, real low mileage collector car, museum car that they brought out for display. There was a really good looking Duster. I think there was a Dart floating around, stuff like that. But, realistically, it was a lot of late model stuff. So, you see a lot of those on the street. There were some really nice cars, and I wish I could have gotten some pictures of them. There was one TA there that was in the show and shine that was actually really, really nice. But yeah, there was I don't know, it was kind of hard to pinpoint any really cool stories. But basically trying to run between two different classes race classes was kind of tough, and the heat was just miserable. But that being said, I still had a lot of fun, got to talk to a lot of folks. So that was mainly the cool story, was getting a chance to meet a lot of folks. So there's that. Let's see. Oh, Rip is saying, speaking of oil, I have noticed every time I change my oil, never I have put the full 7 quarts back in. I only put 5.5 the other day. That's because you're not draining your oil cooler. But if you're changing your oil very regularly, it's not a big deal. Speed Freak, on a stock Hellcat, going to the track on a drag radial, would it benefit to mix 100 or 104 octane with the 93 or just 100 octane? I like just 100 octane. Guys, I don't know what it is, but a buddy of mine, Chris, and I have tried this on a couple of different occasions, running 104. My car, on any mix of 104 above about 3 gallons to 3/4 of a tank, my car just doesn't like 104. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that Sunoco 104 is about 13% ethanol. And for whatever reason, I don't know how that all works out in the mix, but I don't know. My car just doesn't like 104. 100 is a true E10 gasoline. So, or it is an E10 as far as gas goes. My car loves 100 octane. Sunoco 100, and my car, that is peanut butter and jelly. So, yeah, I don't want to get too deep into fuel mixes and all that other stuff. I'm not beakering anything out. But, an average mix of any amount of 100 octane and 93 octane makes my car a very happy Revlon. So, yes, stick with 100 if you can get your hands on it. And if you can't get your hands on it, ask for it. Keep asking whoever you're buying your gasoline from, your race gas from. Keep asking them for it, because I can tell you some folks, especially down here, have just quit carrying 100 octane because people keep thinking that 104 has to be better because it's a higher octane for race gas. But if you're not leaning on your car very hard, the 100 octane is actually a little bit better, mainly because it has a lower ethanol content. We can get back and forth with all of that. But anyway, my car, and I bet your car too, will love 100 octane. Shyster's asking, wasn't there a recall on those for the bearings for the supercharger? He's talking about the weird bearing noise that was mentioned earlier. There's not a recall. It's a TSB, Technical Service Bulletin, and there's kind of a run. I think it was like some mid-year 2015s and some to late year 2015s and some early 2016s may have had that bearing issue. So that's where that's coming from. But no, it is a TSB. If you have that happen, those bearings fail, you take your car in, they swap everything out. Basically, they give you a new supercharger and you go down the road. So let's see. Shawnee's saying it takes 5 to 6 quarts. That is correct. Riff saying, or Dimitri saying, yeah, I didn't know if there was a recall, but there was a problem with it. Yep, it's a TSB. Let's see. Doc Div saying, I've heard of people doing the Redeye superchargers when theirs gets the bearing noise, and for what I understand, about the same cost, new or reman. So if you're outside, I mean, typically you're not going to be outside of the TSB on that. Yeah, you can go the Redeye route. I don't know that I would, though. The Redeye supercharger is larger, but it's larger, meaning it's got a higher inertial drag, and it's got it just generates more heat. So if it were me, I'd just go back with a 238 and call it good. I mean, the 2.7, not bad, but man, I'm a much bigger fan of the stock 238. That low inertial drag, lower heat discharge, and it just works great on that engine. If you really want to make a lot of power, man, you can put in some work on that stock 238. Don't let anybody tell you can't. Shawnee, any other stock-ish Hellcats like yours running 10.6s? No, not one. Dimitri saying, another question, is there any cars that run 10.6s without any tune whatsoever? Yeah, mine. So mine's actually gone 1040s in super good weather and ran a string of 1050s and 1060s in just like 500-foot DAs. So, and that was with my car stock gear on the drag pack, stock tune. In fact, the computer was still locked at that point. 93 octane, true 93 octane runs, as well as 100 octane runs. We're covering those numbers. And that's it. In fact, I was even running those when I had the rear seat still in the car. And that was with the stock gears. Yep. Shawnee's saying, last weekend I ran about 93 octane mix, 93 plus 100 octane. Car ran 133. Very nice. Car runs good, man. Doc Div saying, Pop's car really likes VP 110, but I'd never suggest it for anyone with O2 sensors, but it sure does like it. Yeah, it can tear up a set of O2s. He's talking about VP 110 is a leaded race gas. Hemihead's asking, when you ran NT Tri-5Rs at the drag strip, how much of a burnout did you find worked best? Last trip to the strip, tried a different burnouts, and it seemed like a 2 to 3 seconds of good spin worked best for me. So yes, that is correct. But guys, make sure that if you're listening to this and you're looking for tips on a burnout, make sure you do the burnout correctly. So let's go through that first. With the Tri-5s, and once you get the tires wet, whether you back in or move forward through the water box, don't with a Tri-5, you don't want it. They'll say do the one thing and spin the tires. The thing with Tri-5s, they still collect water, and you'll sling more water into your wheel well. Just roll through kind of slow, get the tires slightly wet, and then pull about 3 feet in front of the water box, then do your burnout. For me and Tri-5s, I like to get them up around maybe 3 to 4 seconds max, and then I'll just kind of roll off the throttle and let the inertial take the car. Basically, I'm just doing a cleanup and making sure that the tires are warm but not super hot. Some guys were doing big burnouts with the Tri-5s and were saying that they had some good results with them when they were really hot. I didn't see any big gain from doing a huge burnout with the Tri-5s. Again, I do about 3 to 4 seconds. Just when I started to see them haze a little bit, that's when I would roll out of the burnout. Rip's saying, is it worth pinning my crank since I am still at stock power? This came up a while back too. A lot of guys have been worried about spinning their balancers, and I'm not seeing a huge benefit by pinning the crank on stock cars. If it makes you feel better it's okay to do it from that standpoint. However, I do want to caution you on something. If you plan on doing anything to the car, if you plan on putting a bigger, lower crank pulley on the car in particular for this, go ahead and get that crank pulley, have your tune lined up, have all that money already set aside, and then put the bigger pulley on it and pin that one. You don't want to have a pinned stock pulley, pull that off, and try to figure out how you're going to pin your new balancer with a crank that's already been pinned. It's just a nightmare. It's a pain in the ass. You can do it, but you're going to have to get it machined, and there's some other steps they're going to have to take. So again, make sure that what you're doing is permanent. In other words, if you're knowing for a fact that you're only going to go like with a maximum of a 285 upper, then yeah, go ahead and pin your crank. If you have bigger plans or more aspirations for the car later on down the line, that's when you're going to have to make those decisions, and it's going to have to be an all or nothing type of deal. Let's see. Dr. Doe saying, I did know it made more power with the Redeye blower, but I didn't know it was that much larger. I knew it was bigger, but I was thinking like 0.1 larger or something. It seemed like little much to me. I can tell you this, you're going from 238 to 2.7, so it's not a big difference. But again, in talking to the guys that developed the supercharger, I can tell you that there are some differences between the two, namely in the rotor length. It's really the only real difference. But yeah, the 2.7 does have a higher inertial load, and it does have a higher temp discharge. So just some things to think about when you're looking at making that switch. I mean, you'll get basically, in driving the cars, I can tell you the big difference between a Redeye and a Hellcat, it all comes down to bottom end torque. And it's the first, like off idle to maybe 3,000 RPM. That's really the only place that you truly notice a difference. It's just in the more torque down low area. The Redeye, to put it in perspective, the Redeye with a 309 gear compared to my car, there's really not a huge difference in feel. You get a little bit more punch down low. You don't really notice a big jump on the big end. And some of that has to do with the tuning. The Redeye tune, just like the Demon tune, is not as aggressive as the Hellcat tune. So there's that. There's just a lot going on in there. But yeah, you can extract some power out of the Redeye blower. I'm not saying you can't, but I'm just saying don't discount that stock supercharger. Pulley ratio for pulley ratio, the Redeye and the Demon blower do move more air, but man, I don't know. If you've already got the supercharger off, it's real easy to swap pulleys on a 2.4. Just saying. Let's see. Dimitri saying my 60 foot was a 1.6, so I feel like pinning it would just make me feel better. Yeah, and that's the case. I mean, if it makes you feel better, man, go for it. It's okay. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Shawnee's saying 1047 with 262 gears still blows my mind. Revlon gets it done. Yeah, she does. Yeah, I mean, that was in great air. And in fact, that day, the car didn't just run a 1047. It ran a 1047. It ran a couple of 1049s. I even think it ran a 1048. I've got 3 or 4 time slips in the 40s with the car with a locked PCM, 262 gear, drag pack. In that case, rear seat delete. So yeah, I mean, the car's run some pretty impressive numbers and is showing to, the goal with the car is to try to get it into the 20s in really good air. And man, I mean, I might be overstepping that. I might be able to get into the teens would be really cool. It's not going to go 9s. And the reason why I say it's not going to go 9s is because I'm just not going to do the extra work that it would take to put it into the 9s, namely pulling more weight out of the car. It's just not going to happen. And the other thing is, it just doesn't really do a whole lot for me. I mean, if you're going to go into the 9s, don't go into the 9s when the DA is super low and say, hey, I got a 9-second time slip out of the car. No, if I want to run 9s, I want to run 9s in the heat and run deeper into the 9s when it's cold. So that's just, the way that my noggin works on this end of the spectrum. But yeah, I would much rather have a car that runs 9s all the time than cheat my way into the 9s with air. But if it goes 10 teens, it would be pretty cool in its current configuration. And I'll tell you what, the way that car has been running, it'd be tough to. I wouldn't want to bet against her. I'll just tell you that. Demetrius saying, hella nice. Hell yeah. She's a hateful little girl. Shawnee's saying, considering how hard I'm working to get down to 1060s. Yeah, I mean, you know, get that thing down here at Mopar Armageddon, and she'll definitely turn a number for sure. Your car will. I know it. Dr. Div saying, they don't make the Tri-5s in my size, but the 420s like to just be cleaned off and they stick decently. I'd like to try them on a better prep surface, but I prefer to tear up the starting line, or not to tear up the starting line. Yeah, for sure. Rip saying, I still plan on putting the 285 pulley on, so I think pulling it would be a good preemptive thing. Oh, pinning it would be a good preemptive thing to do. If that's the case, go ahead and do that. If that's as far as you plan on taking that car, my man, just go for it. And I think you're going to have a nice time with it too. Don't get me wrong. It's just, I get a little bit mother henish, big brothery, I guess you could call it, when I see the issues that I'm running into with fuel quality down here. So again, I don't, you know, I try to look out for everybody, you know, fill you guys in on not only the things that work well for me, but just some things to look out for. And that's the main thing, is fuel quality. But if you plan on going that route, then yep, pinning the crank won't hurt you a bit. Either that or going with a lower pulley to start with. Absolutely. That's what we were just chatting about earlier. Mr. 76 checking in saying, hi, B, hope you're having a good day. Hope you're having a good day too, Mr. 76. Shawnee is saying, I will pin my Innovators West lower when I get it. Not until. Exactly, man. Yeah, we've had a couple of conversations about that for sure. Himmy is saying, thanks. With my Scat Pack, I was able to do a couple of 12.2s at 2,600 foot DA, just cleaning off the tires and not making much smoke as you described. My track is tricky to back into the box. Wish I could. Yep. He's saying, I really don't like dragging the water with me on the street tires. I can understand that for sure. Shawnee's saying, I also ran 12.2 with my Scat Pack. I did a pretty decent burnout. 175 60 foot was his best with the 6-speed. Demetrius saying that was supposed to be pinning, not pulling. No, I got you, brother. Philip saying, hey, B, Gabe, have you seen the new 317 Litton's Hellraiser pulley? States no tune is required. 1.52 PSI gain. How do you feel about no tuning required? Man, I have been up and down this one a bit. Don't like it. In fact, I don't like it at all. And I understand where they're coming from. If you look at the tune, it looks like it can basically it can manage more boost. But my only issue, well, I've got several. One is if you're running catalytic converters, you're running into cat overtemp. These cars do go very rich when they go into cat overtemp, but if you look at the duty cycle of those injectors, they can get up to around 100% really quickly if you're running more boost. If the car is just seeing that higher airflow number, it's going to be throwing more fuel at it anyway. You get the thing into cat overtemp, which it'll go into earlier, then you're going to be hanging the thing on a very rich mixture for longer, number one. And number two, I feel like you might be able to find yourself in a position where you're hitting that 100% on the duty cycle, number one. And number two, fuel quality. Nobody wants to take into account fuel quality. Sure, you don't need a tune, but somewhere in there, they might say race gases recommended, or additives may be needed, or something along those lines. Knowing what I know about the stock tune and the numerous number of data logs that I've done on my car, you've got to understand that, you know, I can only give this advice coming from a place of experience. I'm not just pulling this stuff out of my ass. And, you know, if I thought it would work, I would say, yeah, everybody should buy one. But the problem is, when I'm looking at data logs on my car, and keep in mind, my car is at the drag strip a lot. I've got a ton of passes under a belt, and I'm looking at data logs and I'm seeing short-term knock retard of minus 2 degrees, minus 2.5 degrees, minus 3 degrees, and in some cases minus 3.5 when I've got a kind of an iffy tank of fuel in the car. That's my car protecting itself from a bad tank of gas. If I were to run more boost at that car, two things are going to happen. One, you're going to run into more false knock because you're spinning the blower faster, making a little bit more racket. So the car is going to have a little bit more false knock. But two, you're relying on factory timing and factory fueling, which is lean already from the factory, to be able to compensate and manage for more boost all the time. Not a very good way to start your adventures into Hellcats. So I would just say take that claim with a grain of salt. I'll put it to you like this. If they come back and say, look, on a stock tune, no 1405 code, it has to be verified. If you pop your motor, we'll buy you a new engine and we'll pay to have it installed and we'll give you a Hellcat to drive while your personal Hellcat is in the shop being fixed, then I would say go for it. If they can't stand behind it with that level of enthusiasm, tell them to hit the bricks with that claim. Let's see. Dana's saying, I have added white line bushings to the lower front control arms and tension strut, and it was improvement. But do you know of anything better than installing spherical bearings? I have aftermarket upper control arms and spherical bearings from AAD Performance and really like them, but I don't know of a company that makes lower front control arms. Not sure about the fronts. It depends on what you're looking for your car. I know there's some uppers that are adjustable. I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily run spherical stuff on the street. They're noisy and they have a tendency to break other parts that they're attached to, especially with cars that are this heavy. But can't help you with that one, man. That one is a search away. Unfortunately, let me make sure I'm looking at this. As far as handling goes, that's going to be a tough one to improve upon, especially what you already got. But I don't know of anybody that makes any aftermarket lowers. I'd love to see somebody start making some lightweight components for these things, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. Dimitri's saying, there's this one guy at the track I go to has the same year model Hellcat as I do. He has really bad wheel hop, even though we are both A8s. Do you think a diff brace, or do I think his diff brace is helping him out? It's definitely not hurting. Could be, and it also could be his air pressure that he's running his tires at. That has actually more to do with wheel hop than any components that you're actually putting on the car. Making sure you've got a nice flat footprint. That's where a lot of guys get it wrong, or at least as flat as an independent rear suspension car can get. Let's see. Dr. saying, I'm all for cheating with some good air. Got to get some good air to get this thing moving. Yeah, for sure on that. All these Mopars are heavy. Shawnee's saying, I have BMR lower control arms as well as dip brace. Good traction. Really does keep the car from hopping. And when it does hop, I can get right out of it. That's the one thing about the BMRs that I do like. They do have the larger the larger bushing as opposed to the spawns, which have that little bitty Durlin bushing. The polyurethane in the BMRs, you get a little bit of deflection, but my thing with those is that they do seem to help a little bit from what I can tell. So, Scheister's asking, have you and Demonology ever made a run together? Nope, we haven't. Wouldn't do much good, especially now that he's all modded up. I mean, what's the point? Let's see. Rip's saying, I drive to the water wherever I can or wherever they will let me, even though I do not have front skinnies. Do you think I should? I mean, you can drive through it. It's not that big of a deal. It just depends on how much water you drag up with you. And the problem is that when you drive up, if you can imagine, this being the ground, you drive up, you drive through the water, you're dragging the water with you, you start to do your burnout. As you roll forward, you just collect water again. So it might not be, it's best if you're on street tires to back into the water and then move forward, and then you'll be in a little bit better shape. You're not dragging water up with you. Let's see. Lone Wolf saying, what's up, man? What's up, Lone Wolf? Shawnee's saying, Dimitri, they are not super cheap, but I'm very glad I have Skinnies on my Hellcat. I drive straight through the water, makes everything run smoother in the staging area. That is very true. Dimitri's got the two arms up. I like it. Got that flexing on. The front Skinnies are a lot cheaper than going with 18s in the back. I wonder what would help me the most to get the front Skinnies or the 18s in the back. Man, 18s in the back would help you the most, especially so you get bravadas, throw a set of ETRs, 305, 45 ETRs on there, you'll be in good shape, man. Rip's saying, obviously both together would help me, but in the front, but I can't afford them all at once. Now, most guys, honestly, man, most guys just go with the ETRs in the back and call it good. They'll still drive right through the water. I don't advise it, but you see it all the time, and they don't seem to have too many problems. So, Let's see. Shawnee's saying there's a great deal on 03 Cobra 10th anniversary 17 by 10 5 wheels for 112 a piece, and they will bolt right on. I run these with Mickey Thompson's on 305 45 17s. Very true. Demetrius hanging out with Sean. Let's see. Dana, thanks. I don't think about the spherical bearings breaking other parts on a street car. Global West offers the spherical bearings and recommends them for drag racing. In that respect, yes, absolutely. They work really well. They just get a little bit rattly on the street. You can sometimes get a little bit of slack in there too, where the bushings will keep, kind of keep up with that. The spherical stuff, it's especially if you run a little bit too much preload, they get a little bit clanky in there. It has a bit of a ratchet action, if you know what I mean. Let's see. Shawnee saying LMR Performance has those Cobra wheels on sale right now. Very nice. CS Bunch of Consonants is saying, any truth to the rumor that the latest firmware from HP Tuners is going to remove the ability to remove emission codes such as deleting cats? Not sure about that. Good question, and I'm not sure, but I don't know that you would necessarily have to delete those codes. But it's something that might take a look at. I know that a lot of the tuning software stuff, it's hard to regulate. The only way you could say that would really hold any water is if the car is proven to be on the street all the time. There might be some liability involved with that, but I don't know that the latest update would remove any of that. If that makes any sense. Oh, time out. Had a little freak out here. Here we go. Oh, by the way, CS, by the way, where a lot of that came from was on SCT. I don't know that SCT had to remove those abilities in the ability to kill the rear O2s, things like that. I don't think that they had to do that. So I don't think that HP's update would have to do it either. Let's see. We're saying, just curious, what is the most common car you saw at Mopar Fest? Would probably say Challengers of all flavors and Chargers of all flavors. That was all that was there. There were a couple of real strong SRT8 Jeeps, and I think there was one Viper that was just there. The Vipers never show up to those events, by the way. Let's see. Dr. Div's asking, what do you think of a Hoosier Slick for the track rental? I think it's a great tire for the track rental. I say go for it. Love me some Hoosiers. Shyster's saying, didn't know he was mod. It's been a long since I've watched his channel. Oh, talking about Herman. Oh, yeah, he's modded. Yeah, he's got a tune, pulleys, E85, the whole bit. Basically threw the kitchen sink at that thing. We're saying there is a lot of demons around California, especially in the Bay Area. There's a lot of demons down here too, man. Gotta tell you, I mean, a ton of demons. I think there was probably, I don't know, there was at least 8 or 10 of them, it seems like, at Mopar Fest. Dr. Ziv saying I have some ETRs, but thinking doing the Hoosiers on the 17-inch set might be pretty good. Just remember that you are going to get more rolling resistance, but they will probably hook a little better than the R's. Riff saying, I just got a new recall letter from Dodge saying they want to fix something with my emissions system, but I'm a bit worried. Is it going to be something that will slow me down? Have you heard anything? You know, I've only heard about that in passing. I don't know of anything specific. In other words, I don't know what they're looking to fix. But yeah, mine's doing just fine without any recalls, and I'm not taking my car in for any kind of recalls. I'll fix it myself if I have to. Shyster is saying, just checking for quicker reaction time. Gotcha. Bear with me. Hang on. Running into some slow internets. Time out. Here we go. Dr. Dev saying, I know HP Tuners just added all the older Dodge stuff. Got some happy customers over that. And it only 1 credit. That's right. The older stuff's a lot easier to mess with. Lone Wolf Customs saying, the Ford 9-inch upgrade for the Charger and Challengers worth investing in. Man, golly, I got to say no. I'm sorry. I know that those guys spend a lot of time developing that, but you got some unimaginably fast cars that are out there that are doing just fine with the stock stuff. And, you know, I've heard of people going to the 9-inch, I think HHP or MMX or whoever were selling DSS's kit. Man, I'm just not seeing it. I'm not feeling it. I know, you know, Z broke one with his Charger, so there's that. But I just don't, it's just, I'm seeing way too many cars going way too quick with the stock stuff. And I'm not seeing I'm not seeing the 9-inch kit hold up really any better than the stock stuff is, especially when you consider how many of these cars are out there running really, really quick times without that kit in them. So is it worth it? I mean, if you get the thing to run in the 7s, maybe. And the only reason why I say that is because of the number of gear ratios that you can play with. And besides, at that point, you might have already made the switch over to a TH400 trans anyway. So, you know, which came first, you know, chicken or the egg type of thing with that? I'd have to say, no, it's not worth it. Let's see. Shawnee's saying, I know late model Mustangs were 8H rear end and old school Fords were 9. What are the new Hellcat rear ends for size? They are a 230 millimeter ZF rear end. That's what they are, 230 millimeter. Dimitri's saying, on the topic of the recall I got for the emission system on my Hellcat, it might just be something to do with the laws here in California, which worry me. You know, the funny thing is that there was something floating around about the tailpipe emissions not meeting some standard or something. Hell, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's been a while back. And again, these cars have been running around with these cats on the car. I have no idea what they're talking about, but yeah, if it has anything to do with, I would want to know exactly what they're doing. I mean, check it out, fill us in on what's exactly being swapped out. Is it hardware like catalytic converters? Is it software? You know, inquiring minds want to know here. So, and what cars does it affect, and what years does it affect? More to the point, are we talking about something from, you know, 2013 and 14? We talking about 15 through 18? What exactly are they talking about, and why? So those are the things that I would want to know before I took my car in. Let's see. Saying also, Dimitri saying also, I think next time I go to the track, I'm going to take out my passenger seat and get the rear seat delete just to see how much I can pick up along with the Harman Kardon subsystem. Well, I mean, you're going to lose, I should say, about 20 pounds by taking the subs and the tray out of there. You'll drop about 45 pounds with the true rear seat delete from Mopar. So you're definitely off to a good start there for sure. We're saying, by the way, I have really bad reaction time in all of my races. Should I launch on the second yellow or just get better at launching on the third? Man, it's like a golf swing. If you've got a really hard slice, man, sometimes you just got to play the slice. Launch at whatever gets you the best reaction time. And if you're a little slower on the uptick and you need to launch when that second yellow comes on, if that's when you feel comfortable with it to kind of get yourself going, do that until you start to red light and then start launching on the third yellow. Practice, practice, practice. Get comfortable with it. Dr. Doe's saying, I think that's the only reason to do the 9-inch swap is to get a different gear ratio. Yeah, that's the only reason why I would do it. There's no real good reason to do the swap. And because, look, it's so damn expensive, I certainly wouldn't do it. Shawnee's saying, I pull as much weight as I can out of my car for the track, just over 200 pounds. The Harman Kardon sub's surprisingly light, but I pull it anyway, so I have enough room for my floor jack. That's why I started doing with mine. Just to take stuff to the track, just getting that stuff out of there takes up just a lot of room. Dr. Div saying it's still not worth it. Sky One saying, I am going to the gym to make my car go faster. Makes two of us, by the way. I need to drop about 30 pounds. Dr. Def is saying, how much was that seat delete? Would be good in Pop's car. Maybe a cool gift idea. It was about $420, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And it would be a very nice gift for Pops, for sure. We're saying, it looks like the rear seat delete still has grooves for somebody to sit in. Is that true? No, actually, you've got on the rear seat delete, it comes with the lower basic package tray. And then the back of it is just a real lightweight piece of like flex board with carpet on it, and then it comes with a true package tray, which is a mind fuck to get in that thing, by the way. You've got to have the patience of a saint. You got to remove basically everything out of the way. Once you do that, you're in good shape. Just be real careful with stuff that you're removing. Don't beat it up, bang it around or whatever. And take your time, preferably in a cool and climate-controlled environment. Cool, or I should say climate-controlled environment. You're saying, I'm not saying it would be illegal, but around the track area. Oh yeah, no, I wouldn't. I definitely wouldn't have anybody sitting back there, only because it's not like that rear seat delete is very robust. So that would be the one thing that would keep me from having anybody back there with the rear seat delete installed. Is just, if they sit back on the rear seat delete itself, they could break it or crack it. So just my 2 cents in there. Let's see. Oh, Rip saying, I bought a lockpick for my 2015 Hellcat so I can play my phone on the Uconnect. Have you done that before? I don't even know what that is. My phone hooks up just fine to my Uconnect, so I don't know, bruh. This guy's saying can't put a cooler on it. Can't put a cooler on what, bruh? You talking about if you're talking about like either a killer chiller or a separate blower intercooler, yeah, you could. A lot of guys do that. Ice it down at the track. They got the discharge pipe coming through the trunk onto the ground. A lot of guys do that, and you can get your temps down pretty low by doing that too. But again, it adds a little bit of weight. And unless you're doing, if you're at stock boost, you're doing half-mile events, it makes sense to do. If you're making a ton of boost and you're at a drag strip, it makes a ton of sense to do. But in the middle there, it just doesn't really pay to run that type of a kit. It's cool for show and tell, but it's just really doesn't really do a whole lot. Plus, you're gonna be constantly swapping that stuff out. Let's see. X is saying just came back from Reno to look at the 2010 SRT8. Didn't get it because it grinded every time you put in a fifth gear. Probably needs new synchros. Oh, Dimitri's saying, I like it lets me use the screen as a way to play YouTube videos or anything like that. No, man, I need to do that. That's pretty cool stuff right there. Sky One, rear seat delete. Can't put a cooler on it, rear seat delete. Help me out, man. Trying to bring you in the mix here, and I don't understand what you're asking. But yeah, if you've got a rear seat delete, yeah, I mean, you can still get a cooler in there. Got to be more spooks. 4-door Mopar. What power level on Scat Pack would you require a return system versus a booster pump? I never recommend a booster pump, first of all. So no to the booster pump for a number of reasons. But at what level would I say to go with a standalone fuel system? I would say anything on a Mustang dyno, anything above about 830 horsepower on a Mustang dyno, I would start looking at going with a full 4 triple hat system. Now, that being said, Injected Engineering sells an awesome dual pump kit for the Hellcats. It's a E85 compatible kit. Run gasoline, E85, whatever you want. That setup is awesome, and it will support a decent amount of power. It'll support over 800 to the rear wheels with the stock lines. The thing is it just depends on at what level do you really want to take the car to, and how deep are you going to actually go with the car. And be honest with yourself when you're putting this thing together, because you don't want to spend all the money on a triple hat system if you don't necessarily need it. And people will say, well, you can never over fuel a car. Well, yeah, that's true, but you also don't want to spend a whole lot of money that you don't have to spend and overcomplicate a system in the process. So for me, for most street cars and at a power level that will get you pretty solidly deep into the 9s, the Injected Engineering kit would be the way that I would go. If you want to really make some crazy power, we're talking, 950 on a Mustang dyno or more. then that triple hat's going to be the way that you're going to have to go to get there to feed that beast. Dog saying, I keep spare parts, tools, and a jack. Good idea. Rip saying, the lockpick that I bought lets me mirror my phone on the Uconnect screen. That is pretty cool, man. I need to check that out. So Demetrius saying, so I'm about 11 pounds of boost on my 09 6-speed SRT8. How important is it to have an air fuel gauge at that level to make sure nothing bad happens? It is incredibly important to have one installed in that car. You don't have to be staring at it all the time. There's guys that just put a cover over them, but no, if you've invested that much and you're working with a car that's making that kind of power, yeah, it's good to check. Now, it's not going to help you save the car, but it might at least give you an idea if there is something possibly going wrong with the car. Bad injector, which could potentially make the car look like it's running too rich. Also, fuel pumps going out, you see the thing running a little bit on the lean side. Whatever the case is, you want to have some means of being able to monitor air-fuel ratio, for sure. Let's see. Terminator Coyote, how was Mopar Fest, brother? I wanted to go, but it was 12 p.m. when I woke up. Man, I tell you what, it was fun. I had a good time. I would like to see, I should say, the format be changed a little bit to where it's a little bit more fun to run in the classes. I think that there should be it would be a whole lot easier just to do a heads up dial in as opposed to a bracket race, and just have the dial ins as the bracket. So, a 9-second, a 10-second, 11-second, 12-second, 13-second, 14-second dial in, and then you try. It's trying to get the closest to your dial in. I think that would be the most fun, as opposed to a bracket setup where you just have people that'll go out there and fender. You get a 10-second car running up against a 12-second car where, the 10-second car, doesn't matter what your reaction time is, you're gonna catch a 12-second car if you're bracketing yourself in that area. And you end up with these Fenderella assholes that just fender you. Oh, I want a 12-second bracket. Yeah, with a 10-second car, you fucking douchebag. So anyway, you'll see a lot of that happen at those types of things. That's why I'd like to see a little bit of a change in format. But aside from that, I had a ball. Got a chance to see and chat with a lot of folks. So that was a lot of fun. Sean's asking, did my car get much attention at Mopar Fest, or were you lost in the crowd of Hellcats? I was lost in a crowd of Hellcats. For sure. Hey, Rip, thank you very much. 333, man, I like it. Half of 666. Thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate that. Let's see, he's saying, already have the bung and the wires ran. For the key for his Uconnect, I just need to install the booster. The booster pump and the gauges. Oh, sorry, I was reading into something else differently. Yes, for sure, get the AFR gauge working. I like the number 33. I do too. Rip said, I broke out in the bracket race a few days ago, but I was still closer to my bracket time than the other guy, even though he broke out also. That's a way to win. Hell, I dialed in a 10-6 flat. I went 10-5, 8, 9. So, yeah, just about got it. CS Polk saying, boosted pump sucks. Try having one fail at 126 miles an hour at the drag strip. That happens to happen a lot. In fact, man, dude, okay, so don't get me started on booster pumps and all the reasons why I hate them. And it's not that I hate booster pumps. I think the idea is sound enough. I mean, you throw more voltage at a pump and it makes more power. Well, it's harder on the pump, number one. And number two, you're entrusting your powertrain, you're entrusting your engine, in this case, to a contraption that is an aftermarket contraption that, number one, if it fails and your car goes lean and you blow it up, they're not going to buy you a new engine. And number two, and probably more to the point, what happens if there's a wiring issue and that causes the problem? Or what happens if the pump gets overworked and it just fails, or whatever the case is? Run the right system. Don't try to go on the cheap. Booster pumps are a thing, that they exist. I see why they're out there. But the problem with a booster pump is that it fills a need. It doesn't cure the problem. And it's a Band-Aid more than anything else. It just, if you're running a booster pump, it means you ain't got enough pump to begin with. Let's see. Shawnee, hey, thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Saying, little nugget for the tinted windows. No shit, right? I appreciate that. I recommend at least 35%. Your advice has really helped. I could be flogging a 6-speed Hellcat now and miserable. Yeah, that's kind of the unfortunate world we live in today, where, you know, the automatics are simply that good. I mean, they really are that good. You know, I get it. They take some of the, I don't know what they don't take anything out. They're a force multiplier as far as I'm concerned. There's nothing wrong with the manuals, but with the gear ratios that you're working with now, they're just not as much fun. I'm sorry. I've been a big advocate of the 8-speed automatics ever since I drove my first 6-speed Hellcat. So, I'm just saying. But thank you so much for the contribution to the cause. Let's see. Dimitri's saying, I do see how the booster pump will not work as well with the hop switch that I got. I just don't like, I just don't like them, man. Canada guy's checking in. Hey, Brian, just stopping in and say, hey. Yeah, thanks, Canada guy. Appreciate that. Hey, back to you. Also got attack gauge with attack light. Very cool. Keep it rocking. CS is saying, I did blow up cylinder number 8. That's when I did the forged internals. Oh, shit. Yeah, and that's the one that will go, too, typically. I think it's the hottest running cylinder in the car. Speed Freak 98, talking about your wife's Camaro, came across a 2002 Camaro SS, 68,000 original miles, $7,000. Almost picked it up. Would do heads, cam, nitrous, and let her eat. Fun car, man. I'll tell you what. Who could blame you for it? So the wife and I had a really fun time with my wife. Been teaching her how to do a proper burnout, how to launch that thing, and it is so much fun. It's amazing to me, you know, how much fun that car really is, and just how giddy I get whenever I drive it or she's driving it, like today, and I was riding with her. It's just so much fun. It's such a throwback, and you know, the way that those cars make power, excuse me, is just so much fun. I mean, it's nothing but torque down low, and then whatever power comes, it comes. It's not a big deal. But the thing is that they do everything in a way that is such a riot. And the other thing about it is you can have all that fun at speeds that aren't like take you to jail kind of fast. I mean, they're like stern warning and a ticket kind of fast, but they're not like 0 to jail time in 5.5 seconds. And I tell you what, you forget how much fun. I tell you what, riding with her in that car and us, you know, her, you know, getting her comfortable launching the car and proper burnout stuff and all that. It reminded me of being a kid. You know, it's one of those things where you forget how much fun driving can be. You forget how much fun and how exciting, you know, 60 miles an hour can get. You know, it's stuff like that. So, yeah, it's neat to talk about these cars, you know, the Hellcats and, you know, ZL1s and Vets and all that other stuff, Mustangs, GT500s, whatever. It's a lot of fun to talk about those things, but you have to remember that you know, we all came from somewhere, and it's cool when you can take a trip back in time and, you know, get to play with a toy that you haven't seen in forever. And in this case, that Camaro is just that, and it is so much fun to ride in the thing, to drive it, and it sounds so good. And it doesn't matter that it's not turned into, you know, $6,000 or $8,000 or whatever. The thing's doing good to shift wide open at like 4,800 or $5,000, and the party's over by 4,200 anyway. But anyway, it's a lot of fun, and it's just a riot. So yeah, my wife and I are having some fun with that car. Let's say Dimitri's saying, okay, let me say that again. I do have a tack gauge with a tack light and an audio warning light, but I don't know how so that's gonna be. Sorry, man. Looks like talk to text is killing you. X is saying, ain't nothing like shifting your own gears, though. Man, I'll tell you what. Yes, that's true, but I'll preface that statement with this. It's a lot of fun to drive a manual car with a proper first gear, first of all. A first gear that stretches out to like 70 miles an hour, like what the manual Hellcats do. can get real annoying, and it's a whole lot more fun when the car is light enough to be able to actually enjoy throwing the thing around in much the same way that you can with, say, a Mustang, an older Mustang, something that's not revving to the moon, that still has a bunch of bottom end torque. That's when a manual transmission is a lot of fun. But yeah, in fact, I miss driving manual transmissions a lot. And truth be told, yeah, I'd love to get something with a manual transmission, but I just don't see that time ever happening anytime real soon. It'd have to be something older, something more old school, really, to get me excited about a manual transmission again. And it would have to be slower than what I've got, only so that I can play with it. Look, I'll take this conversation right back to the last topic with my wife's Camaro. It is so much fun watching her giggle and smile and laugh when she's driving that thing and lighting the tires up and do all this other stuff. This is a car that only makes about 150 horsepower, but it still does all the light the tires up, and if you hit it in just the right spot with the right bump in the road, it'll catch a solid second gear scratch. That's the kind of fun I want to have with a manual transmission car. I don't want to try to get all, old school, frowny face, I'm a pedal for every leg type of thing. Look, I did really well for a long time with manual transmissions, with Vipers, Mustangs, everything that I've ever raced at the drag strip, except for my Lightning leading up to my Hellcat, or rather my Challenger, was a manual transmission car. I didn't know about automatic transmissions in my life until my Lightning. So, just understand that. And if I do the manual transmission thing again, it's just going to be for something that's out there for fun. And I'm not even sure if I'm even 100% on board with that sometimes. But anyway, I digress. Let me get back to it. Rip is saying, I got to drive a Tesla P100D the other day. Again, I will say the acceleration on those is crazy fast. It will absolutely alter your impression of what quick is to drive one of those things in ludicrous mode. Shawnee's saying, go retro with your wife's Camaro and put Goodyear Gatorback tires like we used to run back then, and then let the smoke show begin. The fun thing about that car is that you can put any tire, just as long as it fits on the rim, on that car, and just have a ball with it. I wouldn't put anything expensive on it. I just put cheap ones on it and let her send them up in smoke. Let's see. Rip saying, I would love to hear how you would compare a Challenger or a Charger SRT or a Hellcat to a Camaro or a Mustang when it comes to how they feel. I know those ones are good amount lighter or have a different car feel. So here's the thing. I haven't done a my thoughts in a while, and I've been kind of saving up some thoughts on that. But truth be told, man, if I were to be compelled to do a my thoughts, it would really be more about the new ZL1. And basically it would break down like this. I mean, I don't really have to drive the car to tell you that they're just not going to give you the same type of acceleration feel that the Hellcats do. They're just a completely different animal. But I really like the Camaro in the ZL1 form. I am not a big fan of the Camaro in naturally aspirated form, mainly because I feel like it's kind of a list of compromises. But with the ZL1, I feel a little bit differently about it. Number one, I like the car a little bit more because, well, it's faster, but it's a little bit more purpose-built with the supercharger, although I still think it needs a bigger supercharger. It seems to do just fine with what it's got. And I don't know. It's just really not my cup of tea. The Camaro is a great looking car, and everyone that I've spoken to that's driven them, they always come away from the experience with a big grin on their face. But I don't know. For me, it's a great car in a vacuum, but I think that there are cars like the Corvette that overshadow it. And I think that there's cars like the Hellcat that, man, I hate to say it, but they're just bigger, beefier, musclier cars in a world where the ZL1 is trying to be both a sports car and an alternative to the Mustang. where the Mustang's already really good at what it does, and the Challenger is already really good at what it does, that being big and heavy and pretty fast in a straight line. Mustang does the whole squiggly around thing pretty good. Where does the Camaro really fit in? I mean, it's not as fast as the Hellcat in a straight line, and it doesn't do the squiggly really as well as the Mustang, at least in the public's perception. So again, the problem with the Camaro is that it is in, you got the Mustang and the Challenger. They both bookend a driving experience very well. The only way to get better than one of the book-ended marks is to be better at both of what the Camaro and the Challenger do. So the pyramid has to go up. Well, with the Camaro, the pyramid unfortunately goes down, unless you're talking about the ZL1. And then, yeah, I don't know. Too much of the same. And to me, I don't know. I'd love to drive one, though. I think my impressions might change with a little bit more seat time. I have driven a ZL1, but not really in any other aspect of just gathering a little bit of data on the car for a tune. But you don't really get a chance to, what is this lighting thing? Sorry. Anyway, but with that said, there's a chair for every ass. And I think that the Camaro does a great job of combining some of the best things about the Challenger and the Mustang, but it just seems to lose out a little bit. It's almost like they compromised in too many different areas. And I guess, man, I hate to say this, I love the ZL1, but to me, it just seems like they could have done a little bit better. And that's why I'm just not totally in love with them. But that could change if I drove one. I just don't know that I would be so in love with it that I would say, yeah, this is so much better than the Hellcat for all these reasons. I think it would be, yeah, the turn is better. The handling is better. There's a couple of things that are different, but different doesn't mean better. And if you like driving a manual car, that's about the biggest car I would get with a manual transmission. And at least they still make it with a true manual. Let's see. Canada guy saying, what do you think a safe RPM limit would be on a stock 6? Love me a high revving Hemi, but don't want to blow a piston into my valves. It might have been 6.4. Was that what you're asking? On a stock 6.4, I wouldn't run it past about 6,200 RPM. The show is pretty much over. If you've got a different intake and a different cam, you can safely probably turn those things over 6,500 RPM, but get a set of Stanke tie bars and collars before you do that. X is saying, I agree. I had a lot of fun with my 85 Trans Am slow, but fun to drive. Yeah, it's a whole lot more fun to drive a slow car fast than it is to drive a fast car fast. It's just a different way of looking at the world, man. It's just a freaking riot. And like I say, there's this one spot where we're able to have some fun with the car today, and my wife and I, and like I say, it was just fun as hell watching her giggle and smile. And I mean, I was laughing. I was having a good time with it. So it's just a different mentality. And in a lot of ways, you can look at it as just a little bit cooler mentality too. Ethan's checking in and saying, hey, Mr. Mason, I have a quick question. I have a 1450 Mustang and just put an 18 manifold. Nice. Thing is revving to 7,500. The issue is PBD, my tuner, is saying I have 1+1 degree of knock. In Ford terms, it means you've got 1 degree of knock retard. It depends on where it's actually picking up the knock, or if it's all the way across and is that long term. You might want to take a look at the fuel quality that you're getting right now for the car. Typically, you don't see that with that swap. So I would take a look at fuel quality first and check and make sure that you're not running into a problem there. Fairly common issue. He's asking, can my tuner resolve this? It's not false knock. He can only resolve it if it's true knock. You can pull a little bit of timing out of it. You can also check AFR, make sure everything's looking good there. But I would look at fuel quality first. Even if you've been running it around a while, take a look at fuel quality. The only reason why I say that is because I've been running into fuel quality issues with my car lately. It might be a switch over with the seasons changing. Let's see. James Powers asks, what's the fastest you've ever driven? Over 200 miles an hour on several occasions in my 99 ACR. we would run 100 to 200 miles per hour. And typically when we would run over 200 miles an hour, it would be just that I would just watch the speedometer crest over and basically put about 1/4 of an inch after 200 and then roll out of it softly. So, but yeah, we used to do that quite a bit. Some of the faster guys would buzz around me at about 220, 230, but I would say 207, maybe 210 at the most, but I wouldn't call 210. I'd say 207 is really the number. But we did that a lot of times. God, I was dumber in dirt when I was a kid. Now I'm just slightly less dumb. Riff saying, I got my Hellcat 186, just me. What does that mean, Jared? Help me out. Let's see. Shawnee's saying, speaking of ZL1, what's a decent running automatic blower Camaro stock running these days? On a tire, they're running 11.2s. When I was running, I was running 10.8s, and I think Chris was running 11.1. And we were at the track one night. There was actually a fleet of those things showed up. Automatic on a tire. 11.2 was the quickest one that I saw. Most of them were running 11.3s. So just from what we've seen, but I think those are all bone stock on a drag pack or on a drag rear tire. And we watched them run all night. And we're actually kind of surprised by the numbers that they were turning too. We're saying, when I was young, I remember people telling me that I really missed out on the muscle car, and I was so happy when they started it up again. You know, to that point, yeah, I mean, and you're never going to really get the old muscle car era back. Big blocks are done. You'll never see that stuff again, except if you're talking about the 392. You got to remember those cars were lighter. They had a lot more torque than they do now as far as tip-in torque. Horsepower is debatable. Because of how horsepower was measured back then. 440s rated at 375, not really, they're less than that. Hemis were pretty solidly rated at 4.25. L88 was pretty soft at about 425, is really more like 475. So there was a lot of that going on, but the way the 4-speeds and 3-speed automatics, when you've got that kind of tip-in torque, they just drive differently. And that's really more to the point. The driving experience, I don't think you can ever get back. There's a ton of cars that would just annihilate cars from back in the day, even modified versions of those cars by the era's standard, not by today's standard with roller cams and all that extra crap you can do with these things now, modern technology and all. But Hellcats and Camaros and all that other stuff that are street legal that you could drive across country. You couldn't mimic that with the old school muscle cars and still have a car that you would want to be in for any real length of time. But you'll never be able to experience that driving experience again. But we've got it better today than they had it back then. Even though they had many more flavors, I think we've got just a stronger, more robust version of what those cars were back then. But again, you miss out on the Baskin-Robbins kind of idea of all the different cars back then were really cool, and all of them were kind of muscle car-y in a way. So you miss out on that, but at least you get the best cream of the crop. The Mustang, the Challenger, and the Camaro are all very strong performers in their own way today, and the top-tier versions of those are better than the originals ever could hope to have been in the real world. I'm not talking about drag racing or just outright performance, but in the real world, we got them beat solidly and roundly. Shawnee's asking, is a blower Camaro going to beat me at the track if we both are on a tire? I haven't seen one stock yet. Don't worry about it. It's not going to phase you one bit. CS is asking, the other platforms just do not have that raw feeling, if that makes any sense. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I got to tell you, for me, hang on. Here we go. As far as which car has, a more raw or less raw sense, if you want a true raw, the thing is people talk about wanting, this car has a raw sense to it or not. If you want a raw experience, get something built in the 60s or 70s, or even 80s for that matter. But honest to goodness, to really get a hardcore experience, you need to be dealing with hardcore issues. And something like an old Trans Am with a 400 carbureted 4-speed manual, that'll give you the real muscle car experience. something along those lines. The stuff today, it can get you. It's simile. It's a similarity, but you're never really going to get something ultra hardcore unless you go to something like a pulleyed and tuned Redeye or a very aggressively pulleyed and tuned Hellcat. A real aggressive pulley on a CTSV with a 6-speed, something along those lines. You're going to have to go to an obnoxious amount of power with the weight that these cars weigh nowadays. You're going to have to go deep into the power range before you're really going to get that, oh, now I get it, that true big block feel. And that's just based on the weight. It's great to have all the ratios that we have with the transmissions, but we miss out on that big block, that eye-opening, that, oh, now I get it type of feel that you would get with those old big block cars. But no, I get you. It's hard to find any platform that has a hardcore feel today. Argrassi's saying, yeah, like you, B, my life isn't complete without my 6-speed TA in the garage. Hopefully soon have an automatic Hellcat sitting next to her. Yeah, unrealistic to have a stick drag car today. Yeah, for one thing, good luck getting both of them in the garage at the same time. I don't know if you've seen any of these Mopars, but they pretty much take up the entire garage. But if you do manage to wedge one in there, I think you'll have a lot of fun with both of them. And it's tough to argue that the older stuff, and when I say older, I'm just saying stuff from the 90s and early 2000s now, those cars are just so much fun to drive. And I think we've lost a lot of that. And that's kind of a bit of a bummer, with all the high horsepower cars, and, horsepower has been selling units now for a while, but, people are missing out on that fun factor that the old, just the torquey SBC type engines would give you, or the old Windsor type engines would give you, or the early LS engines would give you this, real torquey driving experience that you're just never really going to get anymore. At least not that I've seen anyway, unless you've got a 392. Let's see. Riff saying it does. I like it. Let's see. Jerry Benner saying, what I'd be, I'm heading out Friday night to Maple Grove to put the Scat Pack into the mid-11s. I'm hoping, man. Best to you. I bet you'll do it. Hard saying, life without my pistol grip's almost meaningless. I love it. Let's see. Timeout. Let me get back over here. Sorry, I blasted through a couple of these. Let's see. Argrice saying, life without my pistol grip shifter is almost meaningless. I like it. Rip saying, I love having a 6-speed supercharged SRT8 and an A8 Hellcat. I feel like I have the best of both worlds. Although one of them is ProCharged, which does feel a lot different. Yeah, it's going to feel a ton different. Let's see. Rip saying, although I do feel like a ProCharge Challenger just does not feel right, meaning it's a very heavy feeling car for the ProCharger, if that makes sense. Yeah, it does. And I got to tell you, I understand exactly what you're talking about. I've driven a lot of them. And I know exactly what you mean by that statement, and I know exactly why you're saying it. It's just, it's tough to put into words, really, but really what he's talking about is the fact that with the ProCharger, yeah, you get more power out of it on paper, but it doesn't really ever feel like you're getting more power out of it. You almost have to go to a completely insane number with a ProCharger on one of these cars to really get a feel out of that supercharger, the way you can with the positive displacement Hellcats. Ethan saying, thank you, Mr. Mason. I'll get back to you on the issue next live stream. Take it easy. Saying he loves the content. Thank you very much. Speed Freak's asking, speaking of top speeds, have you seen any stock Hellcats hitting 200? No, but I've seen quite a few of them hitting 180s and 190s. Let's see. Rip's asking, by the way, when you bring up tip-in torque, do you mean something that can be fixed nowadays by a throttle commander or pedal commander or whatever one you get? No. I'm talking about the type of actual torque that the engine is making, that no matter how much throttle you give it, it's wanting to push you back in the seat. That type of tip-in torque. You can mimic it with a pedal commander in a way, or with driver command torque, but it's a different existence when you start getting into the old school engines and how they ran, the good ones, the ones you didn't have to spend a 6,000 RPM, 7,000 RPM rather. Stuff like a 440. It's one of the reasons why the 440 was so much more popular than the Hemi. The Hemi was great at turning RPM, but most people didn't like them for daily use. They were just more of a nuisance than anything else, unless you were just in it to win it. But that 440, just a little bit of tip in, and the thing would really just push you back in the seat. So a lot more endearing to drive. It's one of those scenarios where just because it's rare doesn't mean that it's better. That's where the Hemi falls in line when you push it up against a 440, just in terms of driving experience. Let's see. Shawnee's saying, I put on my old Pella Commander from the Scat Pack on the Hellcat today with any kind of settings. All the car is almost undrivable, twitchy, but I was laughing. Yeah. Had to just about turn it off. Yep, I've seen that before. Let's see. Ken is saying, I just installed the 317 no-tune upper pulley on my new Redeye. Seems to run pretty good. Mix 93 and 100 octane 50/50. I will find out soon with a trip to the track. You're going to need to keep it at a mix of 93 and 100, in my personal opinion. Demetrius saying, as you can see in all my pictures, I can barely fit both my Challengers in my garage. I have to park them both in different directions in order to get out. I can understand that. Yeah, and Argrashi's saying, or Shawnee's saying, nice kid, I'd love to see a video of your Redeye. Absolutely, send us some links. Argrash saying, man, down here where I'm at, Tennessee, some basements are all garage. Knew I'd need more room. Yeah, no kidding. I'd love to have something like that, but not where I live. Let's see. Brian's asking, hey, I've been asking or waiting to ask advice on what I would need to run E85 on my full bolt-on and cam 17 Scat Pack. I don't know what fuel pump would be good and what size injectors would be good. You don't have to get a fuel pump, but you will need injectors. I would say fuel injector connection 650 cc's would be right up your alley, and you will need a tune to go along with it. Dr. Div saying, y'all hit the like button. Hit it. Shawnee, a 650 horsepower car, and now no blower. Let's see. Speed Freaks asking, best SRT settings for the track and for the street on a stock Hellcat. That's debatable. Some guys like all sport with the traction control off. I like all sport with the suspension in street mode with the traction control off. And I run that around both street and strip. Shawnee's saying, Speed Freak, trust me, sport mode for the trans, street mode for the suspension. That's right. Best way to go about it. This guy's saying, most craziest car I've been in was my cousin's 2010 Z06 LS7. That thing made me scared. Makes a lot of people scared. Great car, though. Rip's saying, for me, Speed Freak, it would be everything in track with the traction control and everything like that. Turn fully off, suspension in street. I do not recommend that. I don't like the way it shifts in track mode, but if it works for you, I say go for it. That's more personal preference than anything else. Argrassi's checking out, saying he's hitting the sack. Catching up with you on the next one. Good seeing you. Rip saying, has anybody raced their Hellcat in black key mode? And if so, what'd they get? Yep, Riley did with RP Productions. We both ran, and he ran an 11.4 at 118 miles an hour, I believe. Rip saying, what's your opinion on turbo versus supercharger? It depends on the application. Turbo will always be more efficient, but it doesn't always make for a better driving experience. It also can be a pain in the ass in terms of packaging, so that's the other side of it. Let's see. Saying turbo seem to be a lot less parasitic, but at the same time takes more practice to race. Not necessarily. Actually, there's nothing more parasitic in terms of loss than a positive displacement supercharger. Turbo's got the lowest parasitic drag. That's why you see them on diesels. If positive displacement superchargers were more efficient, you'd see them on Caterpillar diesel engines, if you know what I mean. Dr. Div saying, turn the launch mode on a SRT8 Jeep Grand Cherokee the other day. It left hard as hell. We tuned the whole setup with that trans. Took 2 days to dial it in. It left hard and felt hard. I like it. Canada guy, earlier I meant 6.1, but assuming it would be the same RPM wise. It is true, yes. Same idea, man, for sure. Rich saying, I meant to say less parasitic. Sorry about that. Not a problem. Oh, Shawnee's saying, a guy I know just grenaded his supercharger on the dyno by pulling off the air filter for more power. Sucked in a small wire. Not worth it. All the money for supercharger. 347 stroker motor. Ooh, that sucks. Let me just say, what I like to see on shows like Street Outlaws is turbos is the way to go. Well, I mean, it makes the most power for sure. So it's the most efficient way to make more power. But again, it all depends on what you're doing with the car. If outright power is what you're looking for, then turbo is obviously the only way to go. But if an overall driving experience is what you're hunting, positive displacement is the only way to go. It's really tough to make a turbo act like a positive displacement supercharger. There's pros and cons to both. And again, it just depends on what you're building and what you're looking for. Ken saying, I just pulled my 2006 Viper Coupe out of the garage. Only has 5,000 miles on it. It has a lot of fun. Different than Redeye, but a blast. Love me some Vipers, man. I miss mine, actually. But yeah, get that thing out there, put some miles on it, man. Don't let it sit in the garage. Get her out into the world. Rich saying, so when it comes down to running turbos, is it harder to learn how to run it from the line, or is it just easier altogether? Well, that's two different questions. No, it's basically you just have to learn your combination is more to the point. But no, it's not harder. It's just a little bit different. And you know, again, turbo, you got to deal with the lag on spool and everything else. It can just end up being a pain in the ass. So, you know, that's just one of the issues you run into with that. Meaning, are you always going to get more power? You will always get more power out of a turbo, boost for boost, than you will out of a positive displacement supercharger. Shawnee's saying, turbos with automatics, roost with manual transmissions if you have to race a manual. Yeah, they can be more fun. One thing I don't like about roots, again, is that they're heavy. They're real heavy. So, if you've ever weighed a Hellcat supercharger, you'll know what I mean. But, well, guys, it is coming up on 2 hours. I got to check out. Got to wake up bright and early in the morning. But thank you all very much for hanging out with me this evening. Catch y'all on the next one, and y'all have a great one. Adios.